So this past year, with having almost no Spanish at all, I was able to get to a pretty conversational level, and this is how I did it. First, I did a lot of reading. I would initially, because I had almost no understanding, underline every word I didn't know and then make them into flashcards and study those. Once I had a rudimentary understanding, I was able to read a little more fluidly. Even if you don't understand it, I think switching back and forth between times where you're actively underlining and times where you're just reading, even if you don't understand a word, still going through and reading the words. One thing that's very important, especially for me in Spanish, which is what I learned, is understanding how to read it and what the vowels sound like. So in Spanish, A, E, I, O, U, their vowels would be A, E, I, O, and U. And making sure that when you're reading it correctly, phonetically in your head. So reading a lot is probably the most important thing that I did. The next thing that was really helpful for me was I had a Mexican girlfriend and I had people that I was dating beforehand. And I think dating is such a fun, natural, fluid way. You're going on dates, you're in different contexts, you're talking about things that are happening within your environment, and so you have the context. It's fun. You have motivation because you want a date to work out right and you want to make sure the person is enjoying their time with you. So there's that motivation as well. So dating is a really phenomenal way to make sure that you're learning the language in a fun way. I think reading and dating are probably the two most effective ways to learn a language. Next, moving to country. That's what worked for me. I know not everyone's able to do that, but it is super, super effective. I've been living in Mexico City now for about a year and a half, and just walking around the street, even if you don't hear any Spanish, all the signs are in Spanish. You see a store that sells mirrors, and it says espejos, and you're like, okay, now I know that word. I pass by it every single day. Just the amount of different context clues and places where you can see words in their actions and hearing the language everywhere you go. Obviously, immersion is such an incredible way to learn. But although I do have friends that live in Mexico that don't speak any Spanish and they've been here for a long time, so it is possible to move to a place and not actually acquire the language. I think an important thing is if you do go to a different country, make sure that you're not just staying around with other expats that speak the same language as you, and also make sure that you're externalizing your attention. So often we're stuck in our phones, so often we're stuck in our own heads. But if you externalize, you see, like I talked about earlier, what the sign says in context with what the store sells, conversations that you overhear. Externalize the way that you see the world, and that is an important thing. It won't just come automatically if you live in a new country. You have to make a concerted effort to be aware and try to recognize patterns and words that you're hearing over and over. So yeah, for me, those were the majority of the ways that I learned how to speak Spanish. My Spanish is still not great. It's conversational. I would say just allow yourself to be patient and have time. If you just want to get a language within 2 to 3 months, which I'm not sure that's possible. I see people say that all the time, but it's gonna all go to your short-term memory. Just allow for yourself not to give up and to stay within a long period of time and give yourself that time to be able to actually absorb and acquire the language and allow it to be part of your brain and not just a memorization thing. One more tip that I would add is when you're learning words, try not to just think of it as a translation of an English word or whatever your native tongue is, but instead think of it as the actual picture of the word itself. So, like we said, espejo earlier for mirror, picture the mirror inside your head. If it's book, libro, picture the physical image of a book inside of your head instead of the word book when you hear the word libro. So those are some of the ways that I came to be conversational in Spanish, and hopefully some of those help you.